guys, here come the Dollies. They got fresh sinkers, hot coffee, and the sweetest smile.
Welcome back to the Clubmobile, everybody. We're so happy to have you joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
We have a full house today with us. Joining us is our Book-Club Correspondent Sage, who you guys have met quite a few times. And the guest of honor today is Jane Healey, author of the Beantown Girls.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
We're so glad
Thank
that you're
you
able
for
to
joining
join
us.
us. So if you guys remember last book club quarter, so January, February, March, we had the Beantown Girls as one of our 4 picks for the quarter. And it was, as you know, we always try to go back to one Red Cross book every couple of months. And I think we all raved about it when we did the book club roundup.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
We
So
did. If you guys haven't listened to that yet, go ahead.
yeah,
and
go
do
back
that.
and refresh yourselves with that before coming over here.
Spend a good few minutes singing this book's praises. We loved it. Yeah.
Thank you. That's so lovely. Like I was saying before we got on, this book came out in 2019, and the fact that it's still finding an audience and still finding book clubs, and I'm still hearing from readers all over the world is just amazing. It's amazing. So thank you for reading. Thank you to your club.
Of course. I think the 3 of us said that it was written and released right before I think we called it a boom, haven't we? Where there was no Masters of the Air. Not a lot of people were talking about women's history at all. A lot of people weren't talking about World War II history or women's history in that subject. And then to find a book that had been written right before that, quote, boom, I found it really refreshing. I really liked that it was done right before everyone began speaking about it and before everyone began knowing who these women were.
Yeah. I want to ask, what inspired you to write a book about the women who volunteered with the Red Cross? Like, what was the drive behind that?
Yeah, so my first novel, which came out in 2017, took me a decade to write in the fringes of my life because my girls were really small, and it was about a group of women in Boston's North End at the turn of the 20th century. And they were Italian and Jewish immigrant women. And it was, it finally got published in 2017. That was great, but it was a quieter story. It's a friendship story. Like I still talk to book clubs about it. I'm proud of it. But the next book, I was like, okay, I want to write a big story. I want romance, and I want friendship, and I want World War II because my grandfather was a firefighter on the Navy ships off of the coast of Europe and Africa. And I was really close with him. But I wanted it to be a female-centric story. And so I was just kind of digging around, and I honestly can't remember where I saw this photo. I think it might have been Pinterest of like 4 women standing in a field in England. And it said, Red Cross Clubmobile Girls. And I was like, never heard of them, never heard what's a Clubmobile? Like, that's not even a word. Like, what? Who are these people? And so I started doing digging, as you do, to see if there's enough there for a story. And one kind of serendipitous part of this is with Saturday Evening Girls Club, I went to there's a research library at Harvard. I live really close to Harvard, and it's called the Schlesinger Library, and it's a research library for women's history. And I went there for Saturday Evening Girls Club. They had some archived stuff about the women and their newsletters and things. And just kind of like, I didn't have high expectations that they'd have much in terms of research because I had never heard of the Clubmobile Girls. But somewhere along the way, there's a connection between one of these women and Radcliffe. It was Radcliffe at the time, Harvard Radcliffe. They had 13 boxes of diaries and letters home and photos, and they had a uniform, and they even had like scratchings of like tips on like how to not break the donut machine and like all. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And so I took my daughter and one of my friends, and I booked a bunch of time at the library because it's, research library, they have to pull the boxes and the whole bit. And what I found scanning and going through everything is that the women in Europe, it was most of the material was the women who served in the European theater of operations. And so they really gave me my story and my kind of arc. And that's kind of that that was how I ended up writing it. I pitched it to my editors, and it was the first time I wrote on deadline on a pitch, like on like 30 pages and a synopsis, and they said, go for it, and that's how it came to be.
That's amazing. And I
Yeah.
think that that speaks to what people knew about the Red Cross girls in general, right? Everybody kind of
Mhm.
said, oh, Red Cross nurses, right? Blood
Mhm.
banks, nurse volunteers, and that was it. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden there's this word, Clubmobile, which, yeah, no, it's not even a real word. If you type it in a text or put it in a document, it comes up with the little red line underneath, like this is wrong. But it's not. And
Hmm.
it's these women kind of did their job and then they kind of not were erased from history, but just kind of stepped back and disappeared from the history and the text of World War II. And then all of a sudden now, right, there's this boom, there's this popular movement where everybody's like, oh my God, donuts, coffee, you know, women volunteers who weren't nurses, and now everybody wants to know about them. And I think that your discovery of them speaks to how a lot of people are discovering Clubmobile Girls.
Yeah, one of the questions I get when I do talks and go to book clubs and stuff is, how come I never heard of these women? And I think there's a couple reasons. One is because they were women in World War II history, and like a lot of stories of World War II is they were kind of pushed aside or buried. But the other part of that is this was, you had the WACs and the waves, and you had the Red Cross nurses, and those were very large groups, right,
Yeah.
of women. And this
Mhm.
was a pretty niche program. It was like, I think it was like around 1,000 women total. So
Yeah.
it wasn't that
Yeah.
big. And so I think that's another reason it was a smaller program. And I think that they were kind of just lumped in with the nurses, you know what I mean? And forgotten about, frankly, because it was such a smaller kind of niche program.
Yeah. But they were always the girls that the GIs would remember.
Yeah.
You know, if you
Yeah.
go back and
Yes.
think about it, they maybe wouldn't have remembered the whack who handed them a telegram, but they always remembered the girl and the face of the girl who served them their coffee or their donuts.
They did. They did. And yeah, and the stories, I mean, letter writing is becoming such a lost art, but the letters home
Mhm.
and the letters that the girls wrote that I found in the archives at Harvard, like just amazing, amazing stories. And it was interesting too, because some of them had like journals, so, and also letters home, and the letters home were often a little bit sanitized, like so their parents wouldn't be freaking out about how dangerous it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like one of the things I loved about this story is like on the surface, it's this role like serving coffee, donuts, and smiles, and that's what they did. But
Mhm.
underneath it, like they did so much more. They acted as like big sisters for a lot of these guys, and a shoulder to cry on, or like a therapist, or they served so many different roles.
Was there any books that you read in your lead up to, like in your research, any other Red Cross books you read that you kind of were like, okay, this is kind of the direction I want to take this, or I want to model a character after her, or maybe one of the girls just stood out to you, one of the real women, rather.
Yeah, one of the real ones. So there's one book that's out of print called, I think it's called like Battle Stars and Donuts. It's like a memoir that one of
Oh, I
them
have a
wrote.
copy of
Yeah.
that. Yes, I
Yeah,
actually have a copy of that. Yeah.
yeah. So that
Add
one,
that to my list.
that was really helpful. Then there's like it's called Arc in the Storm. It's ARC, American Red Cross in the Storm, and it was like
Mhm.
a scrapbook that I finally found on eBay and paid too much for because I knew I had to have it. It was like a scrapbook of like of all these like newsletters and photos and things. That was really helpful. There was a couple other. Oh, there was one. Her name is Liz. Yeah, do you know the one I'm talking
Liz
about?
It's
Richardson.
in
Yeah,
our
yeah.
Yes.
book club. It's in our
It's in this
rotation
rotation
currently.
now.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was excellent, super helpful. But yeah, I mean, so all the like main characters are composites, but for with like Viv, I read this story of this girl who was like very artistic and but never really used her art, and then goes over there and starts sketching portraits, charcoal portraits of the
Mhm.
guys in the field, and so they could send them home to their parents. And So that was kind of like Viv's origin story. You know, with Fiona, I read about women who are engaged or married and then they lost, you know, they're 25 years old and they're widowed and they made this extraordinary choice to like go overseas and like go into the battle after they've lost, you know, the love of their life. And I thought, what an interesting and brave choice. And so that was kind of part of her story. And then music was such a huge part of morale boosting.
Mhm.
And one thing, like if
Mhm.
you were like didn't quite fit the mold of the Clubmobile girl like they were looking for, like if you were musically talented in any way, like you were in. And so
Yeah.
I wanted Dottie to be like the musical talent and kind of her story, kind of how she grows in that you know, when she gets overseas.
I loved Dottie's arc because
Oh,
you just
thank
see her come out of her
Yes.
shell
yeah.
so much. And
Right.
I
It's really
just, for
sweet.
anybody who didn't read it, spoiler alert, the Glenn Miller scene,
Oh,
oh, I loved
Yes.
it.
Oh my gosh.
thank you. Thank
We
you.
were
It's
all
so
texting each other during, we all got to the same part around the same
I
time. I
think I
think
remember
Sage
going,
got
oh
there
my God,
first.
chapter 9, chapter 9.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so great. I have to say, like, I write very linearly, but
Hmm.
that scene, I can remember I was walking the lake near my house, and I that scene came to me kind of, and I like went home and wrote it like out of order because I was like, oh, that's what happens there. I have to have that moment for her. So
Yeah. It was
Amazing. I love
beautiful.
that.
thank you.
Sage, I know you had questions you wanted to
Yeah.
ask. Please go
Yeah.
ahead.
I was sort of I'm very into like, sort of writing side of things. So I was wondering how you sort of straddled that like line between historical accuracy and creativity. Like I imagine you had to take a few liberties with the story you told. How did you sort of manage that?
Yeah, that's a, like it's a tricky balancing act. Like I would never change like major events, major historical
Mhm.
events or people and history's kind of trajectory. But you know, I think that there's a lot of like areas in between that you can fill in the blanks. And I always like one of the questions I ask when I'm doing that is like, if it didn't happen, does it feel authentic? Does it feel authentic to the
Mhm.
time and the place? Does it feel organic? And the other thing I always say is I was talking to Stephanie Dreys, an author friend, and she, you know, we were talking about how like your author's note is your best friend when you're like, because you know, if you make a change, you know, you just add that. This is why I made this decision. This is why I made that decision. Like people like research notes. I found like I always
Right.
include them now because people like to know like what's fact versus fiction. Where did you have to kind of fill in the blanks or take some leaps? And so yeah, like even now I'm working on something and I'm writing the author's note at the same time because I'm afraid I'll forget like what I
Mm.
changed. So yeah.
Was there anything you found out along the way of your research process that sort of stuck with you and you had to, there was no other choice but to put it in the book? Was there any sort of things that you included in each character's arcs that you had found during research and you said this has to be in, I cannot carry on if this story does not get included?
Yeah, so you know, I was mapping out like where they would be when in terms of the war, right? And I knew
Hmm.
that they'd end up in and I tried to like their kind of like journey, like their actual travels is like a composite of a few different groups. You know, I forget and so I literally had a map, a Google map because I'm a nerd and like where they were going to go and where they and when they were going to be there. And I knew they were going to be at in the battle, like in the middle of the what was that later called the Battle of the Bulge.
Right.
And I knew they were
Hmm.
going to be there at Christmas, and I was like, I wonder if anything, like in and if there's any interesting stories that happened during Christmas time at Battle of the Bulge. And I read it was actually um, on YouTube, you can still find it. It's an unsolved mysteries episode, and it's about in the episode, this man who's like in his 60s is being interviewed. Um, and he's like, you know, I was in my parents' cottage with my mom. During the war. They were German. They were waiting for the father. It was Christmas Eve, and these American soldiers showed up, and then these German soldiers showed up an hour later. And he said, my mom was like, you can all come in and eat, but everyone leaves their guns outside and no trouble tonight. It's Christmas Eve. And he was looking for the American soldiers that showed up that night. This older man was living in Hawaii now, and he was looking for the men who showed up that night. The men, they were like 19, 20.
Yeah.
And so there was actually like a retirement home. There was a priest at a retirement home watching the episode, and one of the men from that night, one of the American soldiers, was in that retirement home. So he did reunite with one of the little boy in the cabin, reunited with
my
the
God.
soldier. And so I was like, that is a crazy, great story. So the Clubmobile girls were not in that cabin that night, but I'm like, what if, that's the beauty
if
of
they were?
historical fiction. What if,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
it's possible that they could have been, so I'm going to put them there. So
Right.
We need to find that. We need to watch it.
Yes.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
an amazing
If
story.
I can find it, I'll send you the link because it was
Yes,
crazy.
please.
On the other side of that, was there anything you found in your research that that wasn't able to make it into the book? Sort of interesting.
I'm trying to think, like, because the research was a while ago now. I mean, I think that one thing, this history was so rich, and there were so many little stories of these women and the things that they did, at some point you have to pare it down to like one narrative, and that was hard at first. And you despair when you have to leave things on the cutting room floor, but you also don't want to like veer off into too many subplots and things. One thing I really um, wanted to do though was like this is a war story, and you have to show. I didn't want to sugarcoat it too much. Like I wanted to end on an up note. I wanted it to be a hopeful story, but I didn't want to pretend like nothing bad ever happened to these women, because bad things did happen. And so, I really struggled. One thing, I didn't want Martha to die on because I was just like I didn't want to kill anyone, and my editor was like, I think Martha needs to die, and I'm like, I think you're right. And in real life, the story was this Clubmobile girl had the hospital had been bombed and she died, and so that, and then she was like, I think you need to write a letter home, from the I'm blanking on his name. Tommy, right? Is it Tom? Yeah, who's they lose, and I think you need to write a letter home to his parents. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it. Like, I'm like, what? I was sitting in Starbucks, like bawling my eyes out because I was reading all these letters that these like soldiers sent home. Like, yeah, I mean, oh, brutal. So,
Oh.
Yeah.
so I'm
I
sorry.
was
I
at
just kind of like went. That was a long winding answer, but
I
But
was
it's very
actually
like,
about to
I think
sorry.
Martha needs to die. I
Martha
was
does
like,
need
oh,
I
do we have
know.
to? It's so
Yeah.
funny because I was about to ask, was there anything you found incredibly difficult to write and that you couldn't get through it and you were thinking, I cannot carry this on. I have to either take it a different direction
Yeah.
or just grin and bear it.
Yeah, yeah, it was really I think as a writer, and I talk to enough writers, you tend to kind of hold back emotion a little bit with your first draft, like you're almost too scared to put it all on the page. And then and quite honestly, with the letter home, I sent that manuscript in and knowing that Alicia was going to be like, you need to write that letter, but I just emotionally needed some time to like I
Right.
needed a break to figure out how to do that, in a way that again felt like authentic and didn't like and not too melodramatic, so
one of the questions I had, one of the things I was curious about was, how did you come to the decision, again, spoiler alert, guys, how did you come to the decision of Fiona's fiance coming so close, right? They come so close to reuniting with each other.
yeah.
And at the very end, he dies right before she gets to where his unit is. How did you decide that, no, I think I want her to kind of go with Peter Moretti at the end, that this man that kind of takes her out of her shell a bit and brings her into this kind of new, I don't say new life, but kind of shows her that there's more than just loving your childhood sweetheart and just following that linear path through what you would think is life at the time.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. I'm very much like I try to plot things out, not like,
Mhm.
you know, but also leave myself room to pivot if I have to. But I definitely am a plotter. And I had kind of plotted it out, and I'm in Act 3, which is the one we're talking about, where, she's supposed to, she might reunite with him still. Still trying to
Right.
find out what happened to him. And I wrote actually. Um, I wrote the scene where like he's very, very like on death's door, but they reunite at the camp. Like she finds him there, and
Wow.
I wrote
Wow.
Oh
that.
my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah, but quite honestly, I was like, this is veering into soap opera. Like it felt very soap opera, like
Mhm.
it felt too melodramatic to me, and it also felt like meant so many of those guys on those marches did not survive. Like it was like
Yeah.
Hmm.
they were just yeah, it was awful. And so I'm like that also felt like contrived. So that was bad writing day because I tossed like 20 pages or whatever it was, but it just felt more authentic to the story that she finds out what happens but does not reunite with him. So I changed that up. That was a late decision.
Yeah. I
Wow.
liked
I'm
the character of
surprised.
Peter a lot.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really
Me too.
liked his character because he cares for her in a way that is very, if she has the opportunity to go back to Danny, he will let her go, right? Peter's gonna let her go.
Hmm.
He knows he has to let her go. And he goes through all the trouble of finding out that he's a POW for her because he loves her so much.
yes. Yeah.
And it's got this kind of, it's a very I love you but I have to let you go type of romance at the start, and I just really loved the that he starts out so like hard, and girls shouldn't be here and women shouldn't be in war, and at the end he's just so soft for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I,
Yes.
it's really sweet. Like I hear a lot about Peter Moretti still, and I love that. Like people like the romance, and I did want to show that a lot of, especially the officers, were like not sold on the Clubmobile
Mm,
and
Hmm.
their worth at first. They were kind of like, this is just more work for us. That like we have to watch out for these women now, and what are they even doing here? They're not nurses, so I wanted to show like his evolution of being like, oh, actually they do have value, and then seeing him kind of fall for her too.
yeah, I think for as much as he takes her out of her shell, she kind of cracks him open a bit too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you.
He's
Yeah.
hardened and war torn, and then suddenly
Yeah.
he has a woman that sort of softens him up.
Mhm.
Do you have a favorite part of the book, a part that you will open the book and rave about to everyone you speak to?
Yeah, no, only because I just feel like it seems like kind of braggy, like I
Right.
won't like talk to other people, but I will say like that, the Glenn Miller scene, like I said, that one was like in my head, like cinematically from the start of working on
Mm.
this project, that and the Christmas Eve scene, those two scenes are like my favorites. And like I find writing very hard always, but those were easier to write, so.
Right.
Yeah.
How long was it between beginning writing and then the book getting published?
Yeah, so the way it worked with my publisher for this project is like I pitched them with like a synopsis and like I don't know, like first three chapters, maybe 20 to 30 pages, and then we agreed on a deadline from there. And I had with the that synopsis, I had already done a big chunk of research up front, right? So that took me a while, several months. And so from that point, I had about 6 months to hand in a manuscript. By no means is it the final manuscript, but it was like one that we could start working on with my editors. And so then, yeah, it's a process with publishing. So it was about a year later after I turned in the manuscript that it came out.
That's a quick process. I
It
think
is,
Yeah.
a
yeah, for
Yeah.
a
publishing,
few
yeah,
others, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Few others we've spoken to, it's taken 2, 3 years from handing in the final thing to it actually coming out. Yeah. I
yeah.
love that though. I love that it happened so quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And it was terrifying, I'll be honest, because
Right.
the other book I'd spent a long, long time, and so I really kind of freaked out at first. Like, can I do like sophomore book? Can I even do this again? Can I do it on a deadline? Like, I hope it doesn't suck. It was very like
Right.
it was really like
Hmm.
it was very scary. So yeah, but I was, obviously really relieved and delighted that it's been received the way it has.
And it's still, I feel like it still is being. I'm really glad when people approach us online and they say that they've added it to their list of American Red Cross books, because it's such a lengthy list and not a lot of historical fiction is within that list. I think the
Yeah.
only other one is Goodnight Irene,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
which is
Clubmobile.
another
Yeah.
favorite. Yeah,
Hmm.
which is another favorite of ours. So
Yeah.
it's always nice to see your book included in the list as well, because I feel like the mix of historical fiction along with the real letters and the autobiographical things
Yeah.
is really fun too.
Yeah. And I so appreciate that. I appreciate groups like yours, like spreading the word. Like I said, this one is still, it's the most translated, it's the most read worldwide still.
Amazing.
And one interesting story is I got an email from a fan couple of years ago now in Iran, and saying that and it was translated in Farsi, and I loved it, and I was so I called my editor and was like, we don't have a Farsi translation. Like, what is happening here? Like, why is this book? What's going on? And so Iran does not abide by international copyright laws, so
Oh,
it was translated and sold and still is in Iran by a publishing company there. So since then, I've received a
Oh,
few fan letters from girls in Iran. It seems like younger girls in Iran who send me notes about how they love the story and Peter Moretti, and so one of them was like has become a pen pal, Sylvie, and she was like, I we only have the censored version. Is there any way I could get the full version of the book? And I was I'm like, I'm not making any money on this anyway. So I gave her the PDF and I'm like,
please
spread it
do.
around, like, so give it to all your friends. I don't care. Like, I'm not making money on it. And it's Iran. Maybe it'll be a little inspirational because it's like
Mm,
it's a different story about women than what they're used to.
definitely.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, so
mhm.
that I'm still in touch, although they don't have internet regularly these days in Iran, but I'm still in touch with Selvi, and that is just hearing from her people like her, like that's just incredible.
If it's censored, what's taken out? Because I don't
Yeah.
feel like there was
Yeah.
I know
anything
it's
that we
pretty
were like,
clean.
ah,
Yeah,
It's a pretty
yeah,
clean book.
it
Mhm.
is.
it's a
So
safe for work book. Yeah,
it
it's
is,
safe for
right.
Yeah.
work.
I mean, I guess
Thank
there's that
God.
that one very PG-13 scene at the end, but like that's all I can think of. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was thinking of, because it
Yeah.
can't be anything else
Hmm.
Yeah.
was taken out.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
But I
Yeah.
think it speaks to girlhood, right? And friendship
Hmm.
and just doing something that's you're making history without realizing you're making history.
Right, right. Yeah, they'll
Yeah.
look back on their lives later, as they did,
Yeah.
a lot of these women, and we're like,
Yeah.
wow, we were like right there, a part of it. Yeah.
I really loved the ending when all the girls were obviously going to be best friends forever, but they were going off to live very separate lives
Yeah.
in very separate places. Have you
Yeah.
ever had a thought about what would happen next? Not in terms of a second book, because I feel like it ended so nicely, but have you ever had the thought of where they would be 10 years later? Would they still be best friends? Would they still be visiting one another?
Right.
Yeah, I think that, and based on reading some of their letters like in the archives and stuff, many of them had reunions through the years and some of them stayed very close, or they had those round robin letters where they'd all write to each other
Oh,
and pass
yes.
it along. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that when you go through an experience like that at a certain age, especially, like you are just bonded for life, because of everything they went
Hmm.
through, and those people become your people, I think for sure that's what happened to a lot of them. And a lot of them did go on and just go back and get married and like live their life, but some of them did stay and go to the Pacific or stay in Germany, or just not necessarily as a Clubmobile girl, but working for the Red Cross in other capacities at some of the clubs and things. So
Yeah. Did you, in your research, because I know we kind of will start looking into like a specific Red Cross girl, and then all of a sudden, like, you hit the wall and you're like, damn it, there's nothing else on her.
There's nothing.
But then you find one and it's like, like Liz Richardson, where there's just a wealth of information on Liz. Was there any, Liz, maybe Liz aside, because Liz is very much well known, any kind of Red Cross girl or any story, real story in particular, that you felt kind of stuck to you and stuck with you that you can't shake? Because we're always like, I can't shake this. I feel like it's, so I'm always curious what sticks with people.
I think part of it, the story of that woman who like started doing sketches and kind of rediscovers her lost love of art, and so like not only is she volunteering as a Clubmobile girl and that's like changing her trajectory of her life, but then she rediscovers this love and passion and part of herself that she had kind of thought was done. I liked that aspect. That definitely that was something that I was like, oh, that has to go with, that has to be included in somehow with the characters.
Right.
I also wanted to make sure that I kind of showed that I definitely took a poetic license having the three of them be from Boston all on the same Clubmobile. That would never have happened, but I wanted to show how they also like to pull girls from kind of all over the country so that they would have, so some of these guys, someone would connect with someone because they're from the same state or same area or whatever. So, so yeah.
How many times do you read a book where like, the men will see the girls after 6 months and remember them and go, oh, hey, Boston, right? Hey,
Exactly.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
And
I loved that
they're
part.
they're
Oh my
just identified by the name of their truck or the city or the state that they
gosh.
grew up in.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That like connection.
Yeah.
And that's why often like on the truck there would be like one from California and one from the South and one from New England or whatever, just to kind of like mix it up a little bit. And I will say too, I mean a lot of the like littler stories um this book like a lot I mean it's obviously fictional, but there's a lot of vignettes in the book that are even the smaller ones that are based in fact, like when the Clubmobile floods and it's like a big crap show, like that happened, and I was like, oh, that's going in. And then like when they like bust up the machine when they're being trained to make the donuts, and like the machine explodes and like and the nail polish in the dough, like so disgusting. That was like a thing that they'd be like, oh,
They both made fun of me and said that that would be me. They'd say it would be you complaining that your nails are ruined because you had to make donuts. So
yeah, and there's like red flecks in the dough because your nail polish is like rubbed off.
cracked
So
off,
gross.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's something that we had never thought of that would happen, even though we know so much about, the regulations on makeup and hair and age and things. It was not something we ever thought of, that the nail polish would get into the dough, into the mix.
Yeah.
I liked
yeah.
at the end though that she changes her nail polish color so that nobody will be able to tell if there's
Yes.
flecks in the dough.
Right,
Instead
right.
of just not wearing nail polish.
Instead of just not
right.
wearing it, she's like, well, I changed it, so now nobody will know.
Right, it'll blend in.
That's just her all over though. She couldn't be without
Yes,
nice,
that is.
nice nails. Yeah,
That's Viv, I think that's Viv all over. She just couldn't be
it really is
without.
Viv all over. Sage,
So, what's next for Jane Healey?
Yeah.
Is there something new we can expect
going
from
on?
you?
Yeah, so my last book came out, Women of Arlington Hill came out last summer, and it was also inspired by the true stories of the female code breakers in Washington, D.C. at the early days of the Cold War.
Ooh.
And they were the ones who like helped track down the Russian spies who were stealing secrets in the U.S., including the Rosenbergs, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Yeah.
I just read a book about the Rosenbergs, and I watched their granddaughter's documentary very recently too.
Amazing.
And I know that we've just spoke about stories that stick with us. The Rosenbergs has been my new rabbit hole
Oh,
recently.
crazy, right? Like,
Isn't
oh
it
my God.
insane?
Yes.
I didn't know whether to cry. I didn't know whether I believed him or if I believed her.
Yes.
It really messed with me for a few weeks. It's all I could think about. And the poor children too. It's all I could think about for weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
The poor kids. So yeah, I'm extremely excited to read that.
Oh, thank you.
We need to add that to our list.
Yes,
instantly.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's early like Cold War. I call it like World War II adjacent. And so I'm working on a new one that is a little bit of a spy thriller, and it's about kind of the first female CIA agents in Europe, in Rome specifically, who help kind of who help track down the Nazis that are escaping via the Vatican rat line. There was a rat line where these Nazis were.
You got me hooked.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I have to work on my elevator pitch clearly because I'm like, it's a whole thing, and there's romance, and there's and this but yeah,
It's already on my list.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah,
we're in.
we don't have a title yet, but yeah, it's just an interesting time in history because it's early Cold War, 1948, 49, and the world was the world powers were all of a sudden all like obsessed with communism, and so the kind of the passion for finding and tracking down these Nazis who had committed horrific crimes against humanity, like the powers that be in the United States and elsewhere it just wasn't as strong. Like they weren't as concerned about it. So I thought a lot about the moral ambiguity, because if you're a woman or a man in the field who might have served in the war, you still want to find these guys. You still don't want them to escape to South America, but meanwhile your bosses are like, not our problem anymore. So I'm like, well, what if there were people who were like, yeah, we're still going to find them. We're still going to shut down this rat line. We're still going to do this because it's the right thing to do. So there's like, I'm totally nerding out, rambling on right now, but there's just like a lot of aspects to the history and the moral ambiguity. And of course, women trying to like be accepted in the CIA in the early days of the CIA and all of that stuff. So,
no, you've definitely got my interest. And Winnie and I say all the time, like the start of the Cold War, right? So like the end of the 40s, the whole world is still on the heels of World War II, right? So everybody's trying to I guess their main focus is consistently like, well, what are we going to do to prevent this from happening again?
Yeah.
I think I've seen it a few times in a few episodes now that post World War II, I feel like the US specifically was on the edge of its seat.
Yeah.
I feel like no one's been comfortable ever since then. For good reason, of course. If you go through the course of history post World War II, they didn't have a reason to get comfortable. But I felt like it went from Pearl Harbor, World War II, to then the communism and selling secrets to the Soviet Union. And I think I think my opinion has changed ever since. I'm going backwards now. My opinion has changed ever since I read about the Rosenbergs. My opinion of everything has sort of shifted to this country has not been comfortable since Pearl Harbor. For good reason. For good reason. That's been my new thing very recently.
But it's true.
I've been getting. And then, of course, you get into the House of Un-American Activities Committee, where they're pulling in every actress and actor of Hollywood imaginable.
Yeah.
They accused Lucille Ball of being a communist because she dyed her hair red. So that
wild.
Anyway,
right? Yeah.
World War II grips me, but then the other side of it, post World War II, I'm also really into. So I'm super excited to read those.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, especially with the US, and I go into this in Arlington Hall, like when the Soviets get the bomb in 49, when they get the atomic bomb, and like how that, I don't know if we've ever come back from that, frankly. I think we're still like dealing with that aftermath of that.
Well, I know that we're super excited to read those.
We're
probably going to recommend them to every single person. I know that Sage and I especially would recommend visiting your local library in order to find them. This was so much fun, and I'm so glad that we got to do this and to talk about Beantown Girls.
It was nice to revisit it.
The most fun.
Yes.
I'm glad amazing. I love that you're so passionate about it like me. I'm like, oh, you're my people. This is so
This is it now. We're friends forever.
Yes,
exactly.
This is it.
Please
We
keep
are.
in touch. This has been so, so fun.
We had such a
Yes.
great time. Guys, if you haven't, first of all, if you haven't read Beantown Girls, then I don't know
Go do
why. I don't why.
Go do it,
Please
Shane.
make
Go
sure
find
you
it.
check it out of your local library or purchase a copy of it if you're like me and you like to keep it on your bookshelf forever. Just thank you so much for talking to us about this because I genuinely, like I said when we were off camera before, I sometimes struggle with historical fiction because I've read so many books where I'm like, that's not how it goes, right? And I feel like we're not cursed but blessed with knowing so much about so many of these different groups of women now with the war, where it's like, oh no, that's not even close. Oh, that's mm.
Nitpicky, aren't we?
You captured it so perfectly
Thank you.
where it was still like, you're falling in love with these characters, but you can picture the reality of what these girls are going through and you're like, the girls itself are characters, but the setting is so real. The
Yeah.
plot, the setting, it's all real. And I loved that. Genuinely.
Well, thank you so, so much. Thank you for such kind words and amazing questions. I put my whole heart into this book as I always do, and it's just so lovely to like be still talking about it, so many years after it came out. So I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all your support and recommending it and reading it in your club. It's awesome. Thank you.
Well,
Of
thank
course.
you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
thank
everyone,
you,
for
everybody.
listening.
Yes, thanks for joining us. And go read a book.
That's
Go
right.
read a book.
Yes.
Go read
It's
a
a
book.
nice
Yeah.
day.
And
Agreed.
we will catch you all next time.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you, ladies.
everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.